Welcome back to the AchedBody channel. My name is Nick, and today we're going to talk about how to fix your quads. So basically, I'm going to take you through some trigger point techniques, foam rolling techniques, and then some stretches from beginner to expert. And then when you integrate them all together, it'll really help you relieve the tension in your fascia in the legs, especially just mainly in the quads. We all get tight quads because when we sit, the hip flexors tighten, and some of the quad muscles that cross at the hip joint will tighten as well. So let's take care of that today. Alrighty, so basically for the quads, you can use any larger type balls. This is a softball that you can get basically at any store these days. And then there's some more targeted trigger point type therapy balls like this, like a peanut ball that you can get online. And then also this, it's a little bit softer than a softball. So if you have sensitive quads, this will come in handy pretty good too. It's also larger, which makes it easier to roll around on. But let's get to the techniques. Basically, the idea is that there's three main compartments for the quads, and yes, there's four muscles in the quads, but two of them basically run one on top of the other right down the middle. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the ball and basically roll slowly along each compartment. So you have the outer compartment, not all the way on the side where the IT band is. You want to be slightly to the inside of that, more medial onto that quad muscle. Then you have the middle section where the vastus medialis and then the rectus femoris is on there as well. And then you want the medial side, not quite on the adductors, but right kind of diagonally. You'll know where the quad muscle is basically. And the goal is to go up and down that as much as you can just to find the areas that are the most sensitive. And then when you finish doing that, maybe a couple rounds on each, you're going to go side to side as you roll up and down the muscle. This is like self-massaging basically, and you're just locating the tension and where the spots are for you where you have trigger points. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but you're going to notice that certain spots have a little bit more of a fiery sensation to them, or they just feel tighter, and sometimes they produce a lot more pain. Now, the problem with using something so hard is that you can end up damaging the muscle tissue. So I definitely recommend going a little bit softer at first. That way you don't damage the muscle tissue and you build up a tolerance over time. Okay, so then once you find a location that has a trigger point, you're going to want to stay on it and kind of just sit there, breathing in and out to let the muscle relax into the tension. And that's the best way to actually release the trigger point from being there anymore. Ideally, in a perfect world, you would systematically remove them one at a time, but in practice, that isn't actually possible because you're always going to be introducing more trigger points just from daily life. And if you're a very active person, the act of training itself will do that to you. But this is the best way to have maintenance and to potentially reduce them over time at the very least. Side note, it'll feel kind of crunchy in some areas as you go side to side. That's an indication of an area that might have some trigger points around it. And sometimes when I've located a trigger point that I want to sit on for a minute, I'll actually cross one leg over the other to add a little bit of extra pressure. But remember, this should never be more than a 7 out of 10. You should keep the pain scale pretty reasonable because the higher you go, once you really get beyond a 7, you're going to end up damaging the muscle tissue. And you have to be able to breathe into these things in order for them to relax and release. Next up, we're going to talk about foam rolling. This is not a foam roller. This is just a PVC pipe that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's or any hardware store, basically. I prefer these because they're harder and different foam rollers can kind of be hit or miss. Some are too soft. But again, if you use something too hard and you're not ready for it or you're putting too much weight or pressure down on it, you can end up damaging the muscle tissue. So please be careful. But essentially, you're going to do the same thing here. This just is a larger surface area, so it won't be as pinpointed on the muscle as you're rolling it, which can actually feel pretty nice. I like it just as much, and you're going to use the same technique where you roll up and down slowly, and then you shift side to side in order to find the trigger points. Once you find them, you stay on it. But this time, I'm also going to show you an active release technique that you can do. Once you find a location, you're going to actually rest on it with your leg extended, and then pull your leg up using your hamstring, like you're pulling your heel to your butt, and that's going to stretch the quad muscle under tension, which is going to actually help release the tension. I love doing this for my arms and my legs in different areas, and I'm going to show you all of those as we make those videos. But just for the quad example, this is a really, really great technique. All right, so now let's talk about some stretches. All right, so the most basic quad stretch that you can do is kind of like this deep lunge. Now, it does target the hip flexors a pretty good amount, but you can also feel it to your quads if the hip flexors aren't also a limiting factor. This is probably a more basic version of a quad stretch, and we have some more that we can do to make this a little bit more intense. But if you're just starting out, try this one out. You might only feel it in the hip flexor, but you're also going to be lengthening through the entire front chain, like through the quads. So it's also still pretty good. Next is the balancing quad stretch. So right here, I'm just gonna pull this up and grab my ankle and then reach around with the other hand and grab the hand as well. So I've got my ankle in both my hands. And I'm paying special attention to make sure that I'm not cranking my leg out to the side to torque the knee. I want to make sure that this is even and I'm pulling my heel up towards my butt, not in any other direction. This keeps everything in line and it allows you to just stretch the quad in a way that doesn't compromise the knee. Now from here, you can just do a passive stretch, but if you want to get the most out of it, you have to do an active stretch. And this is called PNF stretching, where you actually pull in a little bit tighter and then you resist the stretch by triggering your quad basically, but pretend like you're kicking. So I'm engaging my quad and I'm trying to kick my foot away from my butt right now. And then after 5 or 10 seconds, I'll relax and then I'll pull in the heel a little bit deeper. This is a great way to stimulate your central nervous system while stretching. That way, it actually becomes a brain body connection. A lot of times when people stretch, they just do it very passively. And if you want to enact real change in the muscle lengthening ability, you have to be very active with it. So, right now, I'll do it again. So, I'll pretend like I'm kicking away really hard, and then I'll relax, pull my heel in, and really get into a deep stretch. Now, ways that you can make this stretch a little bit deeper is you can actually tilt your chin down and look towards your quads. For some reason, that fires up the quad a lot more. And if you want to angle the stretch a little bit more towards the inner quad or outer quad, you can do that by rotating the entire leg. Now, this is different than torquing the foot out to the side. You're actually rotating the whole leg together and then leaning forward slightly. So now I'm getting the inside of the quad, and then the outside is a little bit more tricky, but you can rotate slightly and feel that all the way through the outside of the quad. Yeah. Okay, there's one more quad stretch. It's basically the same thing, but it's called the couch stretch, and that's because you can do it up against the couch. And right now I've got a pad down for my knee because it bothers me to put my knee down on the ground too hard. I've got this here to balance, and I've got this wall here also just in case. But this is also a really good way to do it a little bit more passively. But you want to make sure that you aren't just arching through your belly and losing all the tension that you could be having going through your quad. So engage your core and rotate your hips backwards to really target the quad muscle as much as possible. This is going to make a big difference in any of these quad stretches. The attention matters. So there you have it. Those are the main quad trigger point techniques, foam rolling techniques, and then the main stretches that are going to make the biggest difference. But if you really want to enact change, you have to be very conscientious about this. You have to do it daily, and you have to do it for a few rounds to really get the most out of it. The best way to do this is to also pair your trigger pointing with the stretch by going trigger point first to release the muscle, and then you stretch afterwards to really integrate it. The last thing that we don't really touch on this channel too much right now is going to be the strength component of it. It's one thing to have pliable muscles, but to have pliable muscles that can move fully is also just as important. So finding a mobility practice or moving with a full range of motion is going to be another great thing to bulletproof your legs, especially in the quads. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. And if you need any direct access to me, I'm going to be starting something in the future, but right now I'm just trying to get these videos out as much as possible. So like, subscribe, whatever you want to do. I don't really care. Hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next one.